Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be adding 3 new functions to our little expense manager. I said we, but I should have said you because this is a challenge video. You're going to be required to use what you've learned so far in the course to add these 3 new functions. Obviously, I am going to outline using comments what they should do at a high level, but actually implementing them and using them is going to be up to you. So let's start by outlining the 3 functions we're going to create. The first one is going to allow us to add income to the account, and I'm going to call this one add income. Add income is going to take the account to manipulate, which account are we trying to add income for, and it's also going to take the amount of income we're trying to add. Down below that, we're going to have a function called reset account. A reset account, as the name suggests, is going to reset the expenses and the income for an account to 0. So it still needs to know which account to change, but that's the only argument it requires, since we're just going to use the static 0 for the values for both properties. The last one that you're going to be adding is going to be called something along the lines of get account summary. This is going to print a summary of the account that includes the current account balance, as well as the total in expenses and income. So an example of that would be something like the following. Account for Andrew has, right here, $900. That's the account balance. And then I could say 1,000 in income. And then I'd wrap things up with 100 in expenses. So if I had 100 in expenses and 1,000 in income, as reflected here, I would expect to have a balance of 900, and I'm also including the account name in the message as well. It's going to be up to you to run the balance calculation and get everything showing up in this string. You can return the string as the return value for get account summary, and then when you actually use it, you can just print it to the screen using console.log. So let's go ahead and outline what I'd like you to do in terms of actually using them. For example, we could add some income, then we could add an expense, and maybe we add another expense, and then we could check our account with get account summary. Then we could reset things, clearing all of our balances, reset account, and then finally we could get the account summary and print it to the screen again. So this is just an example of how you could use these functions down below to make sure they're all working as expected. It is important to actually use them because otherwise you're not sure if the code is going to run as it might look. If you have small misplaced characters, the program might fail. So take as much time as you need to add these 3 functions into the mix, then make sure to call them down below and test your work. If you get stuck, don't worry, we're going to move through the process together in just a few moments. Pause the video, and when you're done, come back and click play. All right, let's get to it. Up above, we're going to start with add income. This is going to be a new function, so let add income equal a function. We are going to set up the 2 arguments expected. The first one is the account to change, and the second one is the amount of income to add on. Now in the function, all we need to do is change one of the account object's properties. That's account.income. We're going to set it equal to the old value, account.income. And then we're just going to add on the income passed in. So here we take the old value plus the new one, and we store that as the income property value. That is it for the first function. We can now move on to the other ones down below. Next up on the list, we have reset account. Let reset account equal a function, and this function just needs one argument, the account, to reset. We don't need any other values as we're going to set both expenses and income to the static value 0. Right here, account.expenses equals 0, and then on the next line, account.income equals 0. Perfect. So the first 2 were pretty easy. Let's go ahead and move on to the last one. That is get account summary. Let get account summary equal a function. This function just needs a single argument, the account, to get the summary for. Right here, account. And then we're going to need to do a couple of things. We have to figure out what the account balance is, and we have to generate our little string that shows the various income, expenses, and account balance. Let's start by calculating that account balance. Let balance equal, we are going to take the total in income, so account.income, and we are going to subtract from it the total in expenses, account dot expenses. So if I had $1,000 in income and $200 in expenses, the final balance would be $800, which is correct. Let's go ahead and move on to the second line. Now, the second line is just going to be a return statement where we return a template string. It's fine if maybe you created a template string and stored it in a variable and then returned that variable. Either way gets the job done. Now we can start cranking out the various things for this one. Account for, followed by the account holder's name. That would be inside of curly braces, account.name. After the name has the $sign, and then right here we inject the bounce. So that would be the bounce variable. Then we add a period, and we move on to the income. So $sign, then $sign curly braces to inject the income. That would be account.income. Spelled correctly, of course. In income, and the final sentence is going to be related to the expenses. So a $sign, then a $sign curly braces to inject the expenses, account.expenses. And then finally, we wrap it up with the last bit of static text, in expenses, period. Excellent. So we have all of this in place. We have all three functions set up. The last thing to do was to actually use them and make sure they work. And I gave you an example as to how you could do that. You could have used a different series of function calls. That would have been perfectly fine as well. I'm going to start by adding some income to my account. I'm going to add income to the account stored under the my account variable, and I'm going to go ahead and start them off with $2,000. Then I'm going to add a few expenses. So add income, expenses, add expenses. I'm going to add an expense to my account, and I will add an expense of $2.50. Let's say I buy a cup of coffee. Then below that, we'll add another expense. So we call add expense again, and we provide the account we're trying to manipulate and the expense value. Let's say for this one, we buy something more substantial. Let's say some utility bills come in and we pay $160. Now we have some income and we have some expenses. We can make sure everything is working by using get account summary. So console.log, we're going to call get account summary right here. And we're going to pass in the account we're trying to get the summary for. So this code right here is going to return the string. We're passing the string to log, and the end result will be it printing to the screen. And we can actually start here. There's no reason to add the rest just yet. Let's go ahead and run the program and make sure things are working so far. We're going to rerun that script. That is node objects references.js. When I do it, I get account for Andrew Mead has $1,837.50, $2,000 in income, $162.50 in expenses. This is indeed correct. Everything is looking real good. Don't worry just yet about the formatting, the missing 0 right there, for example, and the lack of a comma here. We'll get to that a bit later in the course. For now, we have the basics in place though. Everything is working really nicely. Let's go ahead and wrap things up with the final two calls. The last one is just a duplicate of this line where we print the account summary. So I can copy it and paste it down below. And the second to last one is just a resetting of the account. So reset account. And we pass in the account to reset. My account. Excellent. Let's go ahead and delete all of the comments down below and actually run this thing for the final time. Over here, I'm going to rerun the script and we should get two summaries. The first one is exactly what we had before, and the second one says account for Andrew Mead has $0, 0 in income, 0 in expenses. Everything is working really, really nicely. We have our 4 functions in place, and these 4 functions are allowing us to manipulate my account. Now, once again, for the moment, as we learn JavaScript, we're just exploring all of this in little scripts. But imagine that adding an expense was done via a button click of a form, and the same for add income and reset account. And you could also imagine that the value that comes back from get account summary is shown to the browser. These are all things we'll learn how to do later. For now, we're just focusing on exploring how functions and objects work together because it's something we do so often in JavaScript. With this in place, we are all done for this video. We have our little expense manager project all set up, and we're going to continue on to the next one, learning more about objects. I'm excited to get to it. I'll see you then.